The following presentation was made at the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee for CALLERLAB's 16th Annual Convention, 1989.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session. If you would please take your seat. Remember, our theme of this convention is recruit, promote, and maintain. This segment is called Formation Management. Our panelists this morning, seated on my left, calling for 35 years, member of the Board of Governors, member of CALLERLAB since 1974. He is an accredited caller coach. He is an author of the book of Sight Caller's Text and also co-author of the Big Five. Committees that he serves on or is chairman of. Currently chairman of the Program Coordinating Committee. He's chairman of the Formations Committee, serves on the Mainstream Committee, Advanced Committee, and Challenge Committee. Would you give a nice hand to Bill Davis?
May I retract my biography? I'd like to rewrite it.
Seated on my right, I have one sentence about him. He calls. He's from Reston, Virginia. Been calling for 20 years. Member of the Board of Governors. Former chairman of the Advanced QS Committee. Former chairman of the Advanced Committee. Former chairman of the PCC, which is the Program Coordinating Committee. And the reason he is former on each of those, the board and the executive committee has not found anything yet he can do.
I've been waiting 10 years to cross the
That's written. He wrote that down here. He conducts caller clinics, has a home club program. He is a full-time caller, but he only has to travel on the weekends. Would you give a nice welcome to John Marshall, please? I researched jokes like you wouldn't believe, and these three scientists were talking about what they thought was the greatest invention since time began. And one said he thought the wheel was, and the other two agreed that that was very great. Another one said he thought that the missions to the moon and the space missions were the greatest inventions since mankind, and the other two agreed that that was really great. And the third scientist said he thought that the invention of the thermos bottle was the greatest invention since time began, and the other two said the thermos bottle. Why do you say that? It only keeps cold things cold and hot things hot. And he said, yes, but how does it know? My name is Marshall Flippo. This man had just gotten a divorce, and he was very distraught and down and out, and he thought he would end his life. And he was walking along the beach, and he said, I think I'll just go out into the ocean and drown myself. And about that time, he kicked a bottle that was laying there, and a cork flew out, and this beautiful genie came out and said, what is wrong? And he said, I'm going to kill myself. I don't want to live anymore. She said, don't do that. I will give you 3 wishes, any 3 things that you would like, and you can live a happy life. And he said, really? And she said, yes. She said, but remember, anything you wish for, your former wife will receive double, twice as much. He said, really? She said, that's the rules of the game. And he said, well, okay. I'd like to have $4 million. She said, now don't forget that your former wife will get $8 million, twice as much. And he said, that's okay. That'll be fine. Let her have it. I said, okay, you got $4 million. What's your second wish? He said, I want a 40-foot yacht. She said, now don't forget your wife will get an 80-foot yacht. That's fine. Let her have it. I said, okay, you got $4 million and a 40-foot yacht. What is your third wish? He said, I would like for you to beat me half to death.
Clean that up.
Formation management. Checking my Funkin' Wagnall's dictionary. Formation is the act or process of forming, the taking on of specific form or development, the disposition of military troops as in a column, a line, or a square. And I was real surprised to see that written in Funkin' Wagnall. Relates to us. Management is the act, art, or manner of managing, controlling, or conducting, the skillful use of means to accomplish a purpose, to control the direction and interests of others. The square dance calling definition of formation is, in Bill Peters' words, the geometric shape of the set combined with dancer facing direction. Formation per se does not contain any information about relative boy-girl placement or position. In Don Beck's words, a formation is the basic shape that a square is in at any given time, including the facing direction of the dancers. Don also said, it is a shame that nothing is perfect. In formation management, we must be aware of the total FASR of the square and not just one or two people. That word FASR may be foreign to some of you. I hope it is not, but if it is, learn what it means, because we in the caller training business use it constantly. If you're in caller choreography or discussing caller choreography, we talk about what is the FASR. And that means formation, arrangement, sequence, and relationship. And the relationship we're talking about is the partner relationship. We're going to work basically in the PLUS program. I have a demo square, and we're going to use them off and on. They'll be jumping up and down for whatever the panelists would like for them to do. I would like for my demo square, if you would, form a square, please. And like I said, this is on tape, and so these silent spots, for those of you who might be listening to the tape in the future, is trying to get organized. Are you ready? Who is one? These are all callers. And sometimes you wonder why we have problems in our dance program. They can't figure out which couple is one. The one who has their back to the same wall where is the caller. I'm sorry I asked you, Fred Booby. You already been here. If you would, please, here's the rhythm. Bow to your partner and the corner two, and join hands, circle to the left, go around you do, circle up 8, around you go. Do an ollie man, left almost style, right to your partner, balance in and out. Swing through, go 2 by 2, and you balance once again, and then swing through, go down the line, and now turn the partner by the right hand around into the corner. Ollie man, left, come back and swing the partner around and around you go. Head 2 couples square through in the middle of the floor, go all the way around, and then do, son, do the outside 2 all the way around, make an ocean wave, and then spin, chain through 2 by 2, and a giddy up, go around, and dance them in and out around. Spin, chain through one more time, go down the line, move it in and out around you go, and now swing through 2 by 2, and boy, run to the right around a girl, and now Ferris wheel across you go. In the middle, I don't have any idea who was where.
Sight calling was the last session.
Sight calling was the last session. I had doing a session one time and had a caller wanted to know why cue cards were not made large enough that he could see them standing up against the windshield of his truck. He said he was a sight caller. And I said, what is your definition of sight calling? And he said, anything in sight. Could you pass through to an alley man left? Would that be close? Okay, good. Come back and square your set. Did anybody notice anything peculiar or particular about that dancing that they were doing? Pardon me? You noticed what? Hands down. Hands up. Some did, some didn't. Some forearm and some not. Is that going on across the country? Only in the United States. It's not going on in the foreign countries. As far as I know, I don't think it is. It's not going on in any of the countries overseas. We are CALLERLAB. And we should be dancing exactly like we have described it to be done. There is no other way, in my opinion. I'm very strong about that. You think styling has nothing to do with formation management? The devil it doesn't. Did you see what was going on in this square up here? They were all doing something different and they couldn't figure out where to go or what to do. They asked me before we started, how are we going to do this thing? You asked us to do, I asked them to do that, and they did a very good job of screwing up the square, and that's what was the intent. And that's what's happening when you cross dancers over from one place to another. We do it this way on this side, and we do it that way on that side, and we do something different down in the middle, and we got our dancers going around the square doing this, look like a clown out on the floor. Get your act together is what I say. You may agree, you may not agree. That's your opinion. But I can show in print that mine is right. Now, what I would like for the demo square to do, you may be seated, but what I'd like for you to do in all of our demos is to use the proper CALLERLAB hand positioning and styling as we have approved. Thank you. Now, I would like to begin our session with Mr. Bill Davis. So welcome Bill again. Bill?
Thank you, John. How many would like to just have John Jones tell jokes and forget about all the formation management? You only got about a 30% go on that, John. Well, all right. We're going to do a couple of John mentioned FASR, which is, as he explained, I think, an acronym for formation, arrangement, sequence, and relationship. We're going to, in the formation management we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about mostly formations and arrangement. We're not going to be talking about resolving. We're just going to talk about the other aspect of formation management, the moving the dancers around from formation to formation, and in particularly from one arrangement to the other. About 10 years ago, we first started articulating the idea that there were 6 arrangements in any symmetric formation. Now, we all know what we mean by symmetric formation, right? Anybody doesn't know what we're talking about there? Okay, so we're going to be talking about just symmetric formations. Just symmetric formations. And for every symmetric formation that we can come up with, some of which are not even named by CALLERLAB, we can always have 6 and only 6 arrangements within that formation. And we're going to go through a few of those and demonstrate that fact, plus some things about how to manage those in different formations, how to manage those arrangements, to get them from one arrangement to another, particularly to get them from some arbitrary arrangement to a normal arrangement. That's the problem that sight callers face when they want to go for a resolution. That's the typical thing that we find everyone does, is they go to a normal arrangement in some convenient formation. So that's what we're going to talk about. And just to start out with, I'm going to take the simplest, probably most familiar formation that everybody would recognize, and we're going to have our dancers come up, please, if you do that. And we're going to look at those 6, just for starters. And we're going to do some things in the beginning just to emphasize the arrangement aspect that aren't necessarily going to be good flow, because I'm going to try and just get the people there in situations. We're going to stop. We're not going to be dancing here. We're using the square to demonstrate arrangements. Okay? So that's our format. Let's just have the heads lead right and circle to a line. Now, here's our facing line formation. It consists of two things, as John mentioned. First of all, the formation has a geometry, and the geometry is like a rectangle. Do you see that? It's 4 people one direction and 2 people the other direction. So it's what we call a 4 by 2 geometry. The facing direction of the dancers is they're all facing in. They're all facing in. That's our regular facing line formation. Now, in this formation, we have 6 arrangements that are possible. This is what we call the zero or normal arrangement. The zero or normal arrangement. Everybody pass through, please, and make a U-turn back. And this is a 1/2 arrangement. Everybody is half sashayed. We still have the facing line formation, don't we? We have the facing line formation. That is, the geometry is 4 by 2, and they're all facing in. But the arrangement is half, what we call half. And the arrangement deals with what, then? Arrangement is going to deal with the relative position of the men and the ladies in the set. The relative position of the men and the ladies. So we're all half sashayed. That was the reason we called it a half sash, or a 1/2 arrangement. They're half sashayed. Okay? Everybody pass through here, please, and just tag the line and face right, and the centers trade. And now the girls do a partner trade. Here's an arrangement. We got 2 boys together on the left end, the 2 girls together on the right end. So if we're keeping track now, we've done 0 and a half, and this arrangement happens to be called number 1. That's incidental, but it's 3 now. We've got 3. Boys are on the left end together, girls are on the right end. Everybody just bend the line there, please. And this is a different arrangement now. It may seem like it's the same, but it's actually different. The boys are now on the right end, the girls on the left end. We have developed 4 arrangements now. You agree? 4 arrangements. Pass through, please. Wheel and deal. And boys spread apart, girls squeeze in. We now have an arrangement with the girls in the middle. Boys are on the end. Or another way to look at that is the left-hand couple is normal, and the right-hand couple is half sashayed. You see that? All right? Everybody bend the line, please. And now we have, turns out, the 6th arrangement. The boys are in the middle, the girls are on the end. And the left-hand couple is now half sashayed, the right-hand couple is normal. We've had facing lines, we've had 6 different arrangements. There are only those 6 in symmetric choreography. Can't get any more, you can always get 6. Any question or comment on that? Anybody doesn't quite get what we're getting at here, or see the problem, or see the situation, I mean? All right. So facing lines give us a good fundamental understanding of what these 6 arrangements are. Now, once you've got these 6 and you recognize that there are, you'll find that if you do some extemporaneous choreography, you might end up at any time in any one of those 6. You've got to be able to recognize that. You might miss it sometimes. And in our caller schools, when we're with newer callers who's just getting into extemporaneous calling, they will miss it. We'll set them up in a situation like this without them seeing exactly how they got there, maybe, and we'll tell them to take over, start calling. One of the things we often see here is they might call a right and left through because they're perhaps only concentrating for whatever reason on one couple on the right end there, and they look okay, and they'll right and left through, and we'll say, for the purposes of this session, caller training, we're not going to allow that. Even though it's technically not incorrect, we're going to say, we're not going to allow that as a training exercise because we want to do right and left throughs just from normal couples. We want you to be able to recognize that they are not all in normal couples. So that's an illustration of how people can get in trouble. Okay, so we want to have ways to get out of this and get into it, but particularly to get out of it, let's try this. Everybody pass through, please, and tag the line. Now we're very close to being able to get out of it, and if I say face right, do that, please. We see that we're in a normal arrangement of a 2-face line. We're in a normal arrangement of a 2-face line, so with a couple of calls, pass through, tag the line right. We've gone from an arrangement that was not normal to a normal arrangement. And those are the kind of things you need to get in your bag of tricks, so to speak, in your memory bank, ways to get in, or particularly out of, any particular arrangements you can come up with. Okay, bend your line, please. And we're back in that normal arrangement of facing lines. Pass through and tag the line and face right. Now, here's a situation we'll quite often leave the guys in, and they'll see that in this two-face line that looks like it's a pretty cool line, and they're going to, but they don't like two-face lines, so they're going to bend the line and do that right and left through. And you can see that right now, it might be a little hard to see that they're not in a zero arrangement. So bend the line and right and left through, and you know you're in trouble. You got to be able to recognize that. You got to be able to recognize that, and you need to get different ways to. This is a little different one than the one we had before, isn't it? Slightly different. Pass through, tag the line. Now, if we want to do it, just take a page out of a slightly different book, face left, and we got a normal two-face line again. This happens to be a left-handed one. Bend the line. We're back to a normal facing line. We've got 6 arrangements. Let's look at the arrangements, the 6 arrangements in the two-face line, just to see what they're like. Everybody pass the ocean, please. Those ladies trade, recycle, and veer to the left. Here is the zero arrangement of a two-face line. In any given couple, the couple is normal. That's why we call it zero. It's the normal or zero arrangement. Tag that line, please, and face right. We're now in a half-sashayed line, or a half two-face line. And that's because everybody is half-sashayed. Okay? All right. Bend that line, please, and pass through. Tag the line and face right. And let's have the centers trade and the couples circulate. We now have a two-face line with the boys together and the girls together, and it turns out that the boys are in the lead in this case. That's incidental, but it happens to be the one we call the number one line. A couple circulate, and this is a different one. This is a different one, because look at the girls are in the lead now, and the boys are trailing. Do you see that? Or you might say the girls are facing out and the boys are facing in. Whichever way you want to look at it, they're equivalent. We call this one a number 2. Again, the numbers are not critical, but we have numbered them: 0, half, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are charts, just like these formation charts, there are charts on arrangement. But this is a different formation, isn't it? Centers trade, please. And couples circulate. Now notice that the lead couple here is normal, and the trailing couple is sashayed. That's the way I view this one. That happens to be the number 3 arrangement. Couples circulate, please. And notice here that the lead couple is sashayed, and the trailing couple is normal. That happens to be number 4. And that's the 6 that you can get in two-face lines. Can't get any more with symmetric choreography. Does everybody see that and agree? Or anybody think that, well, maybe we haven't covered something? Yes?
From this setup, if they would all do a U-turn back, so they have the left hand in the center, would that be a different?
Yes, it would. Let's everyone do that, please. Yes. He says, we were in the right face, two-face line. What if we had them all turn back, and become a different situation? Is that a different formation? The answer is yes, it's a different formation. What is this formation? It's a left-hand two-face line. Those are different formations. That's not a different arrangement of the right-hand two-face line. It's a different formation. And in this formation, we would also have 6 arrangements. 6 arrangements in this formation. And it's a different formation. Why? Because the relative facing direction is different. Here they're all facing what direction? Well, but another way, you can even more clear, they are facing left. Counterclockwise. They're all facing counterclockwise. Everyone make a U-turn back, please. They're all facing clockwise. That's a different formation. Why? We said formation consisted of 2 things. The geography, if you will, the geographic view of the square, and the facing direction. So there's 2 things involved in formation: geometry and facing direction. As a matter of fact, we can get from this 2x4 geometry, we can get all kinds of formations. Just the most popular geometry that we have. Everybody face your partner, please. What's that? A chain through, isn't it? Okay, everybody face right. What's that? Left-hand two-face line. Everybody turn back. Wave. Everybody turn back, please. Right-hand wave. Everybody face the center of the set, please. There's your double pass-through. Everybody turn back. Complete a double pass-through. So just by changing the facing direction, we change our formations, don't we? And the geometry stayed the same. The geometry has stayed the same. Okay? All right. We just went through the two-face line and the facing line. 6 arrangements. 6 arrangements in the facing line, two-face lines. We need to be able to, let's everyone face right, please, and see if that gives us that two-face line. We need to be able to get in and out of this. Notice that we were able to go through all 4 of those, what we might have called also archy arrangements, by just doing a succession of circulation trays. That's a good thing to know. It's a good thing to know. Couple circulate. Changes the arrangement from 4 to 3 or 3 to 4, back and forth. Centers trade. And now that puts the boys together, the girls together. Couple circulate. That changes that situation. You can handle all those differently, you see. They're all going to give you, if you did the same call subsequently, they would give you different results. Ferris wheel, please. Here's a way to get out of this. There's a lot of ways. Boys pass through, star through, and we've got a normal two-face line. Normal two-face line. Right-handed two-face line. So that's the way to normalize. Let's bend the line, please. Now, an easy way to get into these different ones that I've found is to use tag the lines. Tags are very powerful in two-face lines. Pass through, please. Tag the line. Now, if at this point here, if I were to say to face in, I'd have the half sachet. If I were to say face right, I'd be into that archy sequence. So that tag gives me a lot of power right there. Face right, please. And now I've got one of those archy sequences. Centers trade. I got the boys together and the girls together. Centers trade again. Couples circulate. That changes things. We got the leaders sashayed now, whereas before the leaders were normal. Centers trade. And notice that we, again, pair the girls up. Couples circulate, please. Do your Ferris wheel here. And this time we got the girls in the middle. Pass through. Star through. And we've got a normal left face two-face line. But it's normal. We quickly go from sashayed or archy or whatever to normal. That's a technique that you need to have in your bag of tricks, is to get in and out of these different arrangements, different from zero arrangements, in order to move to the next step, if you're doing extemporaneous choreography of sight calling, for example, to resolve. That's the next step. Okay, bend the line. And we're back to our, and notice that, again, when I started out, I said, we're not going to worry about flow and stuff, and that probably wouldn't be a good thing to have done right there if we were looking at the overall flow. But we now have the zero line again. Now, there's one thing that I'd like to say here that's a little unfortunate. We realized it back when we first started getting together on this stuff. When we talk about a zero line, we have to be careful, because there are 2 kinds of zero lines. I like to think of them as one with a capital Z and one with a small z, or any way you want. Or some people say one of them we'll just call it an O line rather than the zero line, for meaning the zero or normal arrangement line versus that zero line that has everybody with partners and in sequence. That's the one that I consider with a capital Z, the one that you can always do an Allemande left from. Right now, all I know about this line is, because I didn't even look at them, we weren't going to talk about resolution, is that it happens to be an arrangement zero line. Everybody is normal, and what the sequence is or the relationship, I have no idea, and I don't care for a small z zero line. Okay, let's look at one other formation, then we're going to, John's going to come up and do a similar kind of a thing with some other formations. Let's pass the ocean, please. Or maybe he's not. I don't know what he's going to do for sure. These are parallel waves, of course. And this is the zero arrangement of the parallel waves. And we've got a half arrangement, very simple, swing through. And that's the half, isn't it? That's the half arrangement. All right, now we know that typically to get the 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got to get the boys together, the girls together, that sort of thing, boys facing in, girls facing in, whatever. All right, do a single hinge, please, and scoot back. Now this happens to be called the number 1 wave arrangement. So we've had 0 and a half, and now here's number 1, boys happen to be facing in, girls facing out. All right? Do a split circulate, please. And this is the other one. I could have done a scoot back. At any rate, whichever one I do, I now go from a 1 to a 2. This is a 2. Notice the way you can look at that. Forget the number. Is girls are facing in, boys are facing out. Swing through, please. Now you can look at this one a couple of ways. We're going to have two of them where the boys together and the girls together is going to turn out. And one way to look at this is think about the couples that are facing in. The dancers that are facing in. If they were to balance back, do that just momentarily, gang, you'll see that the couple facing in is normal and the ones facing out are sashayed. All right? Turns out this is the number 3 wave. The number, again, is incidental, but we got 2 boys together and 2 girls together, okay? Swing through, please. Double. And again, we have 2 boys together and 2 girls together, but this is a different arrangement. It's a different arrangement. If you just balance back, please, you can see that the couple facing in now is sashayed and the couple facing out is normal. That's just different from the other one that we had. And there's different ways that you can get there. We did the double swing through. We could have done a circulate. It'll turn out that the circulate would have done. Let's just see if that works. All 8 circulate, please. And notice now if they balance back that the couple facing in is normal. Now you can look at it other ways with, the end facing in is are men and the end facing out are women, and with the circulate that would change that. So there's other ways you can think about it. But there's 6. There's 6. Anybody think that we haven't covered all 6? I realize that's a hard thing maybe to see, because how can I know for sure that I haven't covered something? Well, if you just sort of think about it and or take our word for it, there are only 6. To get more than 6, you've got to start doing something on symmetric, and we're not even talking about that. We're in symmetric things only. But we've shown with 3 different formations, we can get 6, and it turns out only 6. We want to get out of these things. There's lots of ways to get out, and depending on what kind of familiarity your dancers may have, but let's do a single hinge, please, and the centers trade, and the boys run. And that gets us into a normal situation from that particular arrangement in an ocean wave that wasn't normal. And we could have got back to waves, other things, and getting in waves, getting from normal to so-called archy arrangements, the most powerful tool that I know of is hinges. Now, in the 2-face lines, the powerful tool was tagging. But here it's a hinge. Pass the ocean, please. Now, we're in a normal wave. Do a single hinge with your right hand. And now we've got one of those archies. Turns out with the boys facing in and girls facing out. And we did that single hinge. That took us from one to the other. That hinge is a powerful tool to manage this particular kind of formation in its different arrangements. Okay? Swing through. And once you've done that hinge, you see you're going to get from one of those to the other. And here we got the boys together, girls together. After you've done that hinge, which is a powerful thing, you can get to the others. And if we wanted to get out here, we could do several things. Last time I think we did a swing through or something. This time let's do a split circulate, please. Boys trade. Boys run around the girl. Now we got the normal 2-face line. Bend the line. We got the normal facing line. So those are the kind of things that we can do, and that people doing extemporaneous calling should do. They should get a bag of tricks that allows them to easily and comfortably go through these arrangements, both set them up and get them out, so to speak, of the arrangements. Forgetting now about resolution, this is going to be, and turns out, when you've done your choreographic manipulations and your dance that you're putting the dancers through, and you want to get out now, typically you're going to want to get to some normal arrangement. And that's why this is important, because what you may have been doing in your featured little capsule or theme has perhaps resulted in getting some non-zero arrangement. And if you get there, you'd like to be able to get out easily. Yes?
I had just one question. Staying in symmetric choreography, where does the 3-in-1 line come in?
Okay, the question is, in symmetric choreography, what about 3-in-1 lines? Are they... Excuse me? Yeah. That is a little more complicated one, but it'll turn out, and John's going to talk about that. It turns out there's 8 different 3-in-1 lines. 8 different 3-in-1 lines, but they are still symmetric. John Jones will now tell jokes for... No. Why don't you guys sit down? Thanks a lot, guys. Give him a hand. All right. Any questions about... I've sort of given the underlying groundwork on the idea of arrangements within formations, and the fact that what we've said often from the beginning is that this idea of arrangement transcends formation in the sense that no matter what formation you're in, you can get symmetric formation, you can get 6 and only 6 arrangements. Okay? Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Bill. We appreciate that. And, boy, I'll tell you what, if you weren't writing down everything that Bill said, then get this tape. He gave you about a week's worth of choreography right there with some of those things that he was doing and putting you through. The danger that you have to watch and be careful of is what position are they really in as to what call can you do next. The preceding call and the following call is very important, because you could get a square up and form all these 6 different arrangement situations by face right, face left, turn back, and this type of thing. You'd have the danger of going around in a circle up there and not getting anywhere or doing anything. So be careful with that as you work with it. But an excellent job of showing you the 6 different arrangements that you can get in such a hurry. And like I said, if you don't have one of these in your library, then get one. Get 2 or 3 in case you lose one. They're available from their office. And as you can see on here, it starts out with the letter or the number 0. It's unfortunate a little bit in a way that we have 0 arrangement and we also have a 0 formation. Now, as Bill said, we're talking about capital Z as we normally refer to it in the 0 line formation, such as heads, lead right, and circle to a line. In this situation for arrangement, we're talking about little letter Z, or I refer to it a lot of times as an O line to try to just distinguish between the difference between the two. So make sure that you are aware of that and use the proper terminology when you're speaking. Now, next we're going to ask John Marshall to discuss all the things he has on his little notepad.
Thank you, John. Okay, I want to touch base on a couple little things. Let's start with the fact that we're really getting pretty technical when we stop and start exploring this, and it sometimes seems worse than it is. Could you do that again?
Are you guys doing steady?
I think I'm in love. I'm just not sure. The situation that I've been looking at is Bill's talking this term, that term, 0, half line, and I see folks out there that are saying, why do I need to know that? Well, primarily, as Bill kept mentioning it, incidental to this, it's a form of communication. Not for you and the dancer, but between callers, and when you're reading note services, things of that sort. And they've done a big service in trying to delineate all of this so that we can know what we're talking about with one another. And we find ourselves sometimes wandering about that. I sat down and I said, well, why do we really want to know about formation management? What's really is that going to buy us? It buys you variety in your material. I think it will buy both you and your dancers greater success in the activity. I think you may even find that if you have a real good command of formation management, that you end up using fewer new calls that you may not really need to add to your program. I think it's very important that we all learn to recognize the formations. I think it would be very good to know the titles, not just because the work's been done, but so that you can be conversant. Now, Bill used a lot of formations that many of us recognized right away. We saw things like 8-chain through and trade by and beginning double pass-through and completed double pass-through, parallel ocean waves, right-hand columns. I don't know that you touched on that one, but those are ones that most of us fairly well recognize. But sometimes I wonder, this one gentleman asked about 3-in-1 lines, and what is that? And others talked about, actually we didn't talk about it, but inverted lines is a question. And some of you know those, and some of those say, well, I think I know what that is. And then I would ask you, well, how do you react when somebody says to you, well, it's a tidal wave, a tidal line, or a tidal two-face? Every time I talk with callers, very knowledgeable callers, we all make sure that each one of us knows, well, no, we have a two-face line on each side. Or no, they're all in the two-face line, a grand two-face line. We find ourselves struggling over that. We don't need to struggle. We have it narrowed down and specified. What happens if somebody says to you, well, you're in a 1/4 box or a 3/4 box? I know a lot of callers, myself included, for a long time that would have said, what? Just tell me how you got there so I know what you're talking about. That's part of the reason behind it. Now look at 3 things in this. Control. When we talk about management, control is a major factor of what's going on, and we are controlling our floors choreographically. Communication to the dancer. No, you're not going to talk to them about, well, we're in the 0 line, big Z, little z, comma, D, right? You know, we can't talk. We can't talk to the dancers like that. We don't want to. But we do need to be able to communicate to them exactly what we do want when we want to normalize an arrangement. We keep saying we've normalized it now. We have an arrangement that we're comfortable with. The boy-girl gender arrangement is good. Right? And our formation now becomes perhaps a little less esoteric, if you will. We've come up with something more recognizable. Right? And it builds confidence not only in you to know all these things, but also in the dancer. Because that communication and that control that you're offering to the dancers becomes very solid. Right? And as they're more comfortable and more confident in what you're doing, they're going to dance better. You're going to have fewer breakdowns, fewer people running around scratching their heads. But you have to convey that. And if you don't recognize these formations, and let's face it, how many of us have called a call when we didn't mean to? We'd love to take it back. You wish dearly that your tongue would snap right off its roller because you had never meant to say that. I mean, you know, we've all done that, and then it's like, how do I get out of it? I've heard some interesting variations on that in the halls this weekend. I heard somebody say, well, you can do an all-8 circulate from anywhere. So you mean like anywhere? Anywhere. So, well, we got a real problem with that, and as soon as you sit down and start toying with your checkers, you'll recognize what a nightmare that can create for you. And then so you say, well, I'll just do what I did a minute ago. If I said turn back, I'll have them turn back again. Well, it's not always going to work that way. So we can buy the farm real quick, accidentally, but that's okay. If you're familiar with formations and arrangements, you can normalize quickly. You can get out of that smoothly. You might even be able to make it look like it was on purpose, if you worry about that. I fully believe that choreography is not the do-all, be-all of square dancing. It's a tool. It's just one of our tools. We have to take care of our tools. If we're really good with our tools and we know how to handle our tools, we use that to help build our dances. But it's not the only thing. But this gives you a way to get a handle on what's going on and be very comfortable with it. Let's talk about a few things. And I'm going to have the square get up in just a second. I started looking around saying, well, a lot of us don't like to work with anything that has same sex together. How many formations can we find where we could do a flutter wheel, for example, without going into the never land of asymmetric material and so on? How many formations can we find where we can do a, quote, normal or most common gender arrangement flutter wheel? I found 7 where I could have a normal facing couple arrangement, but in different geographic locations in the square. I found 9 for scoot back, depending on what you consider to be the most common usage of scoot back, whether it's 2 boys going in and doing the turn through, or a boy and a girl, or 2 girls. You have to make that decision. I treated it as 2 boys going in. 9 different formations where we could do, quote, the normal, or the most common situation, but by knowing the arrangements. A lot of variety there, but we haven't asked the dancers to dance in an unusual arrangement of dancers. Perhaps different formations than they're used to. But that kind of variety is good, and it makes people a little more comfortable when they see that. When you get into the oddball things, I strongly recommend do not leave the dancers there very long. They get real uncomfortable, you know. And I think as callers, sometimes we do too if we get out in left field. We want to get out of it quickly, normalizing. You can't do it quickly until you're familiar and you've recognized all these. There's nothing wrong with looking at formations beyond the norm of what you would work with.
This ends side 1. Please turn over tape to continue.
I'd like to ask the square to come back up if we can. Thank you. Let's touch quickly on a few of the formations that are not as common. Let me have the heads lead right and veer to the left. Tag your line. May I have the girls face in and the boys face out? Right? Now, this is what we talk about when we reference an inverted line. Now, this Bill will tell you there's a variety of, how many variables are there on this one, Bill?
How many different inverted
Yeah.
Well, there's only 2.
Okay. Right. Well, see, we had 8 on the 3 and 1s. We haven't got to that yet. Okay, but if I take, never mind. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Right. Let's come back to this inverted line situation. Occasionally, we get caught up in something like that, and we need to recognize it for what it is. Now, this is not really difficult to get out of at all. You know, we can find ways to quickly normalize it, and sometimes you may want to take your dancers to an arrangement like this and have them do something first, actually execute a call while they're there before you normalize. Right? Otherwise, what's the point of going into that formation? You know, just to get there and be done with it immediately. Let's do a, how about a cast-off 3/4? Okay. Can we have the ends fold behind the centers? We keep coming back to 2x4 geometry. Very comfortable for most of us. Have the gentleman pass through, if you would, please. Star through. Again, a 2x4. But we came out of the inverted line. All we managed to do as far as a call there was a cast-off 3/4. But I wouldn't leave the dancer there for very long. And I'd like to get them out quickly. Right? And we used a basic call, mainstream call, to get them out by having the ends fold, centers pass through, and so on. And yet it's a different type of call that we would not always see when we're working with our dancers. Can we have the couple circulate, just to get ourselves moving here? Can I have the boy who's looking out, if you would, please? Would you run right? We now have a 3 and 1 line. 3 people facing in one direction, 1 person in the line facing another direction. There's a variety of ways we can normalize this. There's also a variety of calls we can do while we're here. Does add a little variety, but sometimes we get a little uncomfortable because now we have boy, girl, and somebody's out of phase, right? Somebody's looking out. Well, certainly I could have the girl looking out turn back. Not very exciting, but certainly it would fix us up, right? Not that she wasn't exciting. Right. Can we have an all 8 circulate? Centers, you're doing a pass-through for your circulate to the next position in the square. Right? All 8. That's right. And stay in, center, stay centers. We still have a 3 and 1. 3 are looking out now, and 1 is looking in. Another approach for the action. Right? We can look at different ways to work with that. Can I ask the centers, if you would, please, to do a partner trade? All right. Good. We have another type of an arrangement here, 3 and 1. Still 3 doing something, others doing something else. A variety of things you can do depending on how competent your floor is and how comfortable. One thing that I see, and just looking at the dancers, would be to have the girls do a Ferris wheel, their part of Ferris wheel, while the boys did a recycle would take us to a 2x4. Some of you are not comfortable. Some are not comfortable at all in doing same-sex recycles, and perhaps that's too much for a floor you're dealing with, and you need not be concerned with having to do that. May I ask the centers, if you would please, to do a box sonnet. Same 4 pass through. John, we said plus was all right, did we not? We could deal with plus comfortably, all right? All right. Would the end dancers please circulate 2 places while the center 4 dancers chase right? We now have a 2-face line. One of the arrangements that Bill shared with you, right? And we've come out of a 3 and 1 by having everybody functioning together. Half tag the line, please. Swing through. Spin the top. The ever popular, right? Good. Right. Let's do this. Each wave swing through, if you would. I mean, tidal wave arrangements are something that we can do, and you notice I specified each wave. Right? And I did so because we have a wave of 4 in the center that could also be addressed. Right? And I also specified each wave because I didn't want the very centers to go across as they would in a grand swing through, which is another option. Right? But now we have a 1x8 geography here, or if you look at each side, each grouping of 4, you have 1x4 geography. A little bit different. And sometimes we don't do too much there. But let's talk about a very common call from here. Boys run right. Now we can do a variety of things out of an arrangement like this and a formation of this nature. Right? We could have each side bend the line. We could, please don't. Right? We could have each side half tag. So we're working out of a line type situation, and Bill talked about how powerful tags were before, and he was working in parallel lines in a 2x4. Now if I'm looking at each side and I talk about a 1x4 on each side, 4 people, 1 direction, they're only 1 deep. Some of us are deeper than others, but, one deep, right? But we can convert that over by using the tag into 2x4, where many of us are more comfortable. If we asked, let's do that. Let's have each side half tag the line. All 8 circulate. Let the boys run right around the girls. Very common arrangement at this stage. Can I have a pass the ocean, please? Center 4, swing through. Let the center wave only do the swing through. Have all of the boys run right. All right. California twirl, we'll keep everything right-oriented for the moment. All right. We have a tidal line. Actually, indulge me for a moment. Could you folks counter-rotate that whole line? I want the floor to see it across, and I should have set you up that way originally. All right, yeah. And don't touch our table. In looking at it from here, right, you can see we have a tidal line, or some people refer to that as a grand two-face, but our terminology has set it up that way. Now, what will we do from here? I mean, I wouldn't leave dancers here a long time. But you can break things up and talk about each side. You can certainly break things up and talk about centers and ends. Center 4, wheel and deal. The other folks bend the line. Right? Static square arrangement, we all recognize immediately, and we get more comfortable. We don't leave the people out. Could the folks that are now standing in the head position lead right, please? Swing through. Boys run. Bend the line. Single circle to an ocean wave. Good. Let's have all of the boys run right. This is tidal two-face. A tidal two-face line. So we have each side in a two-face of its own. Again, you can work centers versus ends, or you can work each side. Obviously, we were here earlier. We talked about each side half-tagging. Each side could cross-fire. Center 4, if you would please, do a wheel and deal. Let the other folks bend the line. We'll still come back to a static type of arrangement that we can deal with and be a little more comfortable with. Let me ask the folks that are in the head position at this point, if you would, to star through. Pass through for me. Everybody slide through. Pass through, wheel and deal. I want to get you a particular spot here. Let the centers slide through and back away. Have the other folks come down the middle and touch a quarter. This is a 1/4 box arrangement that we talk about. Formation, thank you. 1/4 formation. And when I look at that, it's like, well, what do we do now? How excited are we about being here? I'm not suggesting that you run out and try to look for these things to use and take to your dancers necessarily. I am concerned that as callers we recognize that and can deal with it should it happen to us. That's really it. I want you to be comfortable and competent and feel like whatever's going to happen out there, I can deal with that. And that's what we're looking at. And how do I normalize these things? Because we can get in trouble rather quickly if we're not careful. A cute little thing that I found from here, looking for something to do. It doesn't help a great deal, but it's kind of cute as far as actually dancing. Those who can, pass through as many times as you can. We got a lot of activity here, right? As many times, thank you, right, okay, right. Yeah, that's no problem. I understand it's easy to slide away from us back there while you're waiting for a thought to be finished. All right, now, I'll tell you, that's a lot better than what I had a minute ago in terms of that box arrangement, because it was weird. That formation, sorry, Bill, that formation that I had a moment ago was a lot different. This one is a little more easy to recognize. Let me ask the outsides to make a U-turn back while the center 4 walk and dodge. Star through. Okay, we're coming back to normal land, as it were, for the most part. Let the couple circulate, please. Now, all we're really looking at is what kind of formations can we have here, what kind of arrangements, and how do we normalize out of them. Again, you don't have to take this, build it into your singing calls. You don't have to take this and to your floor. But if you know it, if you spend time with your checkers looking at it, that sense of control and command that you have will allow you to communicate to the dancer immediately what you want, and they have a sense of that. And they will come to trust you more and more in dealing with these things, but you have to trust yourself. I'm going to ask you to do one thing for me here. Square sets for just a second. I forgot to do the same thing Bill did, but I'm not looking for resolution here at this point. I figured everybody would forgive me. Let the heads lead right and circle to a line. Let us have everyone pass the ocean, please. Do an all 8 circulate. Boys run, promenade, heads do a U-turn back, not a wheel around, a U-turn back, please. You're close. All right. And now we have 4 boys in the middle, of course, and 4 girls on the ends. We knew that. Yeah. You know how it is when you have to adjust to a strange voice, strange hall, new caller. It's perfectly all right. All right. As an aside, it's not really part of what's going on here. I would say that I teach the dancers that we work with from beginners on up, when they find themselves, should they find themselves, cattywampus, and we all know mainstream beginner dancers without anything as odd as the promenade and somebody turned back, we all know that they find this way. They get out by about an eighth. And I have our dancers line up to a wall. And I actually teach them to do that while they're dancing. If this happens to you, line up to a wall. Dancers become disoriented if they don't do that. And it helps them and it makes them more successful. So, you can take a vote, but usually it's not a real problem. Especially if you've had continuing motion in the square, it'll carry you to that. But it would help you. Now, at this point, everyone please do a slide through, remembering that as God handed it down on the tablet, girls will turn left and boys will always turn right, no matter what happens. Now, the next thing I'm going to tell you, folks, is please, boys and girls, do not attempt this at home when calling with another caller. We have, of course, found ourselves from time to time in odd positions wondering, why did I do this, and how did I get here, and why did I bother? But take a look at it. There's a variety of things you could do. We're going to ask John to do something. I'll tell you about reading my biography, my one-line biography here.
What is this, get even with John or something? What did you call? I was sitting up here half asleep. Oh, my God.
You want a record, John?
How long have I got?
Well, lunch is shortly.
Oh, remember where you are right now, dancers. Okay, mark a spot on the floor, regardless of whatever's necessary. Do this. Those who can start a Dixie Grand. You go right. Everybody go left. Everybody go right. Alley man left your corner. Go back to that spot you were in. Think I ain't a side caller? What else little smart aleck thing have you got today? When did I meant to look at the list, but did anybody recall offhand when Slide Through first came out? Is Jack Murthaw in here? 20 years ago? 25 years ago? 61? How long ago was that? 65? 23 years ago? It's close. Anyhow, when Slide Through first came out, and I have to tell you, John and I set this up. I knew what he was doing, and
But isn't show business wonderful?
yes. And that figure that we just used, Jerry Gilbreth wrote that the other day, and he's one of our callers from home, and so we researched it and used it today. And but as a young caller, 23 years ago, the worst position or most unusual position that I could dream up to put dancers in was this particular position right here. And that was before we had the choreographic management that we have today. We never had heard of a magic column that this is. What program's it in? C1? Okay, it is now. We used to experiment with it at Mainstream. So I went to the person that I thought at the time was one of the best choreographers in the business, who was Al Tex Brownlee. Some of you know him as Tex Brownlee. He's too little to be a Texan, in my opinion. But he lived in Odessa, Texas at the time. He's a very good friend of mine, has been ever since I have been calling. And I went to him and I said, Al, the most unusual position I can think of to put dancers in is to have them in a promenade. And at the time we had the call backtrack, which was one of my favorite calls that we took off the program that I hated and I cried, but I've been able to live without it. So we do a U-turn back instead. It's no problem to live without a call. It comes off the program. So I said, Al, get the dancers in a promenade and have the heads do a U-turn back facing same sex and do a slide through, and they wind up in this position. He said, "My God, John, why did you think of such a thing?" And he said, "Okay, write it down and let me have it." So I did. 3 years later, I saw him at another dance, and he walked up to me with a piece of paper, and he said, "Here's your answer." That's how long it took to develop an answer to this particular thing at that time. Because, like I said, we didn't have all the information that we have today. And what he had done is take it to Red Porter down in Houston, and they both had worked on it for this length of time, and finally gave me the answer, which is basically the same thing that John just put us through in setting up the particular call to come out of it with the Dixie Grant. Now we have magic column circulates and all that type of thing. But that's the story and how choreography has evolved and changed in that length of time. John?
We thought sometimes...
You get them out.
Okay. We thought that sometimes these things can get a little dry, and that's why we were kind of lightening up a little bit. But something has happened, and John made it very clear. He said, "at that time." And I think that's one of the problems, folks, and I'm part of it, and we're all part of it. We've really gotten entirely too smart for our own good. Because it used to be that we would teach a dancer this much, and that's what he needed to know, but we got a little smarter, and we figured out 1,800 other ways to do these same calls. So now, instead of that new dancer learning this much, she's got to learn this much to dance with at the same, quote, club level, if you will. But things do change. Our view of choreography changes because we're a folk activity, and things do change. For example, from here, keeping things very basic, I might have said those facing, starting with a right hand. Start a right and left through, and everybody finish with the girl next to you. Next to you, as in any other right and left through. But you see, we never used to break that up and say, "You folks start the call, nobody else play." We never used to say, "Do your part." We've evolved into that, right? And now, as weird as that position looked to us, look how simply we rectified it. But back then, 2 years. However, I will admit that resolution was a lot better than this. That resolution's still good today. So good stuff's always good, right, John? Always. Thank you very much. I'll give you back to John.
Thank you very much, John. Nice presentations by both Bill and John, and if we have time, they're going to do just a little bit more. And one of the most difficult things for dancers to do is to do what our demo squire has been doing up here this morning, is to stand while some dumb callers stand up here talking. And it's very tiring, and it really is. It's much harder than dancing a whole evening of dancing. And if you would, please give a nice hand to our demo squire. And I'm going to ask them to come back up and square up again.
Better get a big enough hand. You will.
And in formation management, and we are going to do this and show you just a little bit of some bad choreography that can happen with formation management if you don't really understand. And these are rather simple things to do. Heads lead right and circle to a line. Pass through, wheel and deal, double pass through, centers in, and wheel and deal. Lots of oohs across the floor, right? Certainly. But would you be surprised if you heard a new caller call that? No, because they haven't learned yet to not do that kind of thing. And I understand that there are computer programs today that do understand body flow. Am I correct in that? Not yet. I heard of one. I haven't seen it yet. But if you're working programs from a computer, most of them have no idea and no understanding at all about body flow. And so if you simply see a formation and hunt for a get out, that type of thing is not one of them. Double pass through, please. Centers in, bend the line. Same thing. Same thing. Double pass through. Pass through. Wheel and deal. Double pass through. Peel off. Cast off 3/4. Oh. Call a bunch of that to your dancers and watch them come back next week.
With a rope.
Yeah, and see if they'll even stay past 8:30. Yeah, that type of thing just simply will not work. You must. It's a direct reversal of body flow. But it's still also formation management, because new callers make that mistake. And we experienced callers sometimes make that mistake. Square your set, please. Side step to the center and turn and face your corner. Step to an ocean wave. Walk and dodge. Bend the line. Not very many oohs in that particular case. Pass the ocean. Pass the ocean. Walk and dodge. Bend the line. Then you see your dancers getting messed up. So many callers, and I had a newer caller really argue with me that there was nothing wrong with that because he was only watching one couple. Pass the ocean. He was watching the man on the end of the wave. Walk and dodge. Bend the line. He was not having any problems, so he was doing a mental image of himself in that man's position and not watching the other couple or the other man at all. I placed him over in that position and let him dance it a few times, and he began to realize and see what was going on. Star through. Veer left. How often do you hear that call by some of the most famous callers in the world? I will not call any names. No, I'm not going to call any names. It's a thing that we get into because men put themselves in the man's position and not the lady's position. Bend the line. Star through. Veer left. The man is not having any problems, and we strong-arm men don't really care about the ladies too much sometimes, but we better start realizing what they're doing. Couples circulate. Bend the line. Star through. Veer left. Boy, she's having to do a reversal every time in that. I don't call it. The same as I don't call a yellow rock anymore. A lady told me one time 20 years ago, said, you can take that, I love your calling, but you can take that silly yellow rock and throw it out the window. I do not like to hug anybody except by my own desire. I haven't called one since. John? Bend the line, star through, veer right. Get a dose of your medicine in there, guys. Why they say, well, that doesn't work. Well, it does too. It's the same thing. Yeah. It doesn't work on either side. Let me see. There was one other that I wanted to do. The square through to a left ollie man, we're talking about hand positioning in that. That's using the same hand twice. Is that what you're referring to? Okay. Yeah, that outside cut. Bend the line. Star through. Flutter wheel. Same type of situation. You know, it's very crowded in there. Veer left. And zoom. On paper, it works. Square your set.
Make sure you put a disclaimer on this choreography. Anybody picking this thing?
Heads lead right. Veer right. That's great formation management, isn't it? Great choreography. Terrible, terrible body flow. Okay. Do we need would you like our dancers to sit down? Does anybody got some choreography real quick? Because I know they're getting tired. There's some choreography? A choreography thing? Somewhere? Here? Yes? Okay. Where do you want the dancers? Wheel and deal. We got an 8 chain 3 position.
Now, a right and left through here on a crowded dance floor is uncomfortable. I'm not sure if it's not flow, but that would be for me.
He's saying that maybe a right and left through on a crowded dance floor would not be really particularly good. Dancers will adjust to that, I think. The real bad thing that I think you can do on a dance floor, and I heard a caller do this, and it was in at one of our local festivals, or state festivals, and the floor was entirely jammed full. But he was going to do his favorite singing call anyway, and he said, sides face, grand square. And they were all over one another. They had no idea where their square was. That's bad judgment. Or not good judgment, I should say. Sure, I agree. I think a right and left. Gosh, I call it all the time. I hope it's okay. A choreography thing, Mike?
A two-ladies chain would be rough.
A two ladies chain, yeah, would be a little bit tough, I think. Choreography?
From facing lines, pass through, bend the line, ladies chain.
That's bad body flow. Okay, the call was dancers do this: star through, pass through, bend the line, two ladies chain. Okay for two and not good for the other two. Choreography.
Yeah, from here,
Past
past the ocean, hinge.
the ocean. Now what was the call? Thank you for saying single hinge rather than this plain hinge. Okay. Walk and dodge, partner trade. Yes, that we've discussed this on 2 or 3 different occasions, and the ladies have told us that that is okay for them because they have gotten used to planting that outside foot to make the pivot to come back. And yes, we've discussed that particular call several times. So that is one that has been decided is acceptable. Choreography here?
I just would like to see something that reverses the flow of the dancers. I see them go around and around and around in one direction or the other for half a dance and get them kind of drilled in.
What do I have? Facing lines? What do we got? Little zero lines? Little Z lines? Okay. Are you speaking of this? Slide through, please. Notice we beg our dancers to do nearly everything. Yeah, we need to quit begging them after a while, you know. Just go and do this thing, I call it. All right, swing through. Boys run. Couples circulate. Couples trade. Couples circulate. Couples trade. Bend the line. See, so often we callers will put ourselves in only one couple's position, or one man's position, and the one going around the outside wasn't having any problem, but that one on the inside was circling them to death. Choreography here, yellow shirt.
Left face, two-face lines. Any tagging from that formation?
A left face, two-face line. Everybody, those face, the left side couple in each line, California twirl, please. Is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, couples circulate. Tag the line. Face right. You can flow them into it sometimes if you're careful. Okay, but you have to be careful with it. Yes, John? Bend the line. Here's the rhythm. Dance up to the middle and come right back. Now pass through and bend the line 3 times. That was John Marshall's choreography. Okay, one thing I wanted to do, the left-hand couple in each line, half sachet, please. I want the boys in the center of the line. Very good. Something that I did, and I said yesterday the 6 most important words are, I made a mistake. And I did. And I called something without having made sure that I knew what the ending formation was and the ending situation. And I wound up in left field at a very large dance and had to say, folks, I have made a mistake. I was terribly embarrassed by this. And I did this. Pass through, boy's face, load the boat. And that's... Stop. Just stop right here. That's almost exactly what happened on the floor. Now stop. Gentlemen facing out, ladies facing in. please. Now, wait a minute. That's where I had my mind made up that they were supposed to be. And I put them back in formation, and I did it again, and I told them that's where they were supposed to be. Fortunately, there were some dancers on the floor that were close enough to me, and they said, "John, I don't think that's correct." And I looked down at them, and they were in a different formation. And I said, "Oh, my God, you're right," you know. And I had to apologize to everybody that I was completely wrong. Men, if you would, turn back and face into the center. And ladies, if you would, face each other and step over beside them in a line. Pass through. Men, face each other. Ladies, you're going to work around the outside just like you normally do, passing 3 people. No, wait a minute. Go ahead. Let the ladies do. You're going to work around the outside. Pass 1, pass 2, pass 3, and face in. Gentlemen, you're going to pass through and turn a quarter to face out, do a partner trade in the center, and pass through, and this is your ending formation. And I was terribly embarrassed by the fact that I should have known what the ending formation was going to be, so my recommendation is don't call it if you don't know it. And don't expect dancers to jump up and do that, even though that's legitimate in the Plus program. Work it in a workshop if you want to, but don't let the dancers win. Give them a great opportunity to win. That's okay. Dancers, if you would, please sit down. How about a nice hand again for our dancers? One of CALLERLAB's many accomplishments is the fact that we have been able to develop and standardize clear, precise definitions of our choreographic terms. We have not said learn and teach the calls one way in basic, mainstream, and plus, and then learn and teach the same calls a different way in advanced and challenge. I strongly object to any theory of this nature. My own personal opinion, I do not feel that such a thing as fractionalizing recycle is possible, according to the definition, that type of thing. We are CALLERLAB. We get blamed for all the bad, and we get very little credit for the good. It's time that we started doing lots of good. Before we wind up, I'd like to thank Bill Davis and John Marshall for joining me here. How about a nice hand for both of them? An excellent job of presenting formation management. And like I said, if you didn't write all that down, get this tape, because there's lots of good choreography in there. Just keep in mind your body flow and your styling and what comes before and after each one of those formations that was put in. Death and taxes. Taxes cow, taxes goat, taxes pants, taxes coat. Taxes crops, taxes work, taxes tie, taxes shirt. Taxes chew, taxes smoke. Teach him taxes are no joke. Taxes tractor, taxes mule. Teach him taxes are rule. Taxes oil, taxes gas. Taxes notes, taxes cash. Tax him good and let him know after taxes he has no dough. If he hollers, tax him more. Tax him till he's good and sore. Tax his coffin, tax his grave, tax the sod in which he lays. Put these words upon his tomb. Taxes drove me to my doom. After he's gone, he can't relax. They'll still be after inheritance tax. Thank you. Good job. Very good. Loved it. Thank you. Thanks, Sid.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.